everybody, and welcome back to Greener's World. I'm Greener, and how are you guys doing? Well, I'm starting a new segment, and this series is called Confessions and Stories. I have tried over the past several months to film this exact video, and a lot of things had stopped me, and the one thing that really got me to do it now is the fact that the last person of this story is now gone. I mean, I don't have to worry about repercussions. I don't have to worry about backlash within my family, since it has to deal with my family and myself. And this is about child molestation, and if you are under the age of 18, please stop watching, because this is an adult content. But I need to get this off my chest, and I need to tell my story. So, having said that, I was 4 when my molester started to molest me, and it lasted until I was 9. Every night, except for Saturday night, because my molester lived with me. It was my father. And he used to tell me that he didn't do it on Saturday nights because it was Sunday and nothing happens on Sunday. So he was conscious that he was doing something wrong. When I was about 9, I sat him down and I said, okay, you either call the police or I call, because I was having a tough time with everything. And a tough time was like, I was noticed, not then, but now I noticed back then that I was depressed. I didn't have friends. I didn't go out. There was nobody in the neighborhood to actually play with, because I was basically the baby of the neighborhood, and everybody had stopped having kids. So I was not doing so well in school, but there was other problems with that. But this subject had, or this situation had actually taken its toll on me as a child at 9 years old. Well, he said, okay, fine. He called his bishop, and then he told his bishop, he told my mom, and they called the cops. And I remember that the CYFD person, or Child Protective Services lady, she made me watch my dad go to jail. And for a 9-year-old, and I do love my dad, even to this day, I don't like what he did, but I do love my dad. It's taken me a long time to get there, and I'm like 42, and I got there right around the age of 35 that everything had happened. Well, anyway, she made me watch him go to jail in handcuffs, and my mom was swearing up and down she didn't know anything about it, which that's not here nor there. My mother is still alive. And then she took me away, and that really messed me up. That sent me into this whole long spiral of depression and things like that. Luckily, it was in the summertime when this all had happened, so I didn't have to worry about school. I learned from that experience that all adults, no matter what, will lie to you, and that started my distrust of everyone, and I do mean everyone. So I was gone for about a month, and I came back to the house. My mom was grateful and everything like that, and life started to resume halfway normal, because, you know, my dad was out of the picture. Found out that my dad couldn't be anywhere near me for about 3-4 years, something like that, even not longer maybe. So we tried to resume. We went back to church, and everybody in the Mormon church that I had gone to treated me like I was the victim, like I was the one that lied. How could this man do this? He's such an upstanding gentleman and blah, 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 blah. she's got to be lying. She's got to be lying. Well, in the process, my parents had gotten a divorce. And then my mom got to be a social pariah, apparently, because everyone thought that she was going to steal their man. My mom's all like, no. And so I didn't even have church people at church to back me up. Even my best friend at the time had my dad living with her family, and her parents turned on me. She turned on me. So I didn't even have friends. I didn't even have the one friend in my entire life. So I literally was alone, isolated, and to myself. And I learned quickly that I could only trust myself. I could only do things for myself at that time. Then my mom, because of all of this, we went through a court battle. I didn't testify because my mom said that if I did, my dad was going to die in jail, and I didn't want my dad to die in jail. So my mom manipulated me a lot in that type of a situation. So my dad went to years and years of counseling, group counseling, a lot of stuff. Well, my dad came back for about a year. Nothing happened in that year. But my parents, within that time, my dad had divorced my mom. I was 13 when he came back and divorced my mom right after I was 14. And then 4 months later, my stepmom entered the picture, and she hated me. She hated everything that was possible about me because I was my mother's child and not hers. And she really hated my mother, so on and so forth. Well, to make matters worse, when I went to go to a psychiatrist at that time, because my mom had poisoned me against psychiatrists, she told me that I could never talk about it. I was never allowed to say anything in church to anybody. I was never to do this or that. So I honestly just stopped going to the Mormon church. By this time, I had it. And we never got to talk about it at the house, at my dad's house, because she never wanted to hear it. She never wanted me to talk about it. I wasn't allowed to spend much time solely with my father because she was afraid that I was going to, talk to him about it. She really, really, really isolated me and my dad away from each other. She was the type of woman that was very self-absorbed. She didn't want to have my dad be around anybody, and she'd even isolated when his mom came down to live with them. She isolated them from each other as well. So it wasn't just technically me that she isolated from, but it was the matter that she always threw in my face that, it was all, basically she made it all my fault. It was all my mom's idea of putting it into my head. My dad could never do this, blah, 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 blah. So as I got older, I totally stopped hanging around him and her for quite some time. I mean, she made a comment about me being pregnant at 17, and I didn't go back to his and her house except for once a year, and that was at Christmas. I didn't even take my children to see him until my girls were at least 13, 14 years old. And so then it came down to where I had to move back in with him. Still nothing happened. I was totally fine. Everything was kosher. But still, she would not let me talk to him about the situation. And by this time, because of that early memory and the lack of trust of adults, I became I was diagnosed with anxiety, severe depression, like I can go months. Anxiety, I don't like being out in crowds or in public, so I'm almost agoraphobic because of it. Just little things like this that I've noticed that has crept up in my adult life that stems solely from that time period and the time period of her. Well, my dad and I sat down when she was not around. She was out doing something for like 4 or 5 hours. And he sat me down, and this is past the time that I had forgiven him. I will never forget, but I had forgiven him and everything. And he tried to talk to me about it, and I said, there's no reason to talk about it now because it's all said and done and over with. I live here. I'm fine with it, but there are some rules. Like I told him that this is why I kept the kids away, you know, especially my girls, kept them away. And then I told him if he was still around when we had grandchildren, that he would not be alone with my grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. He said that was fine, and he understood that. But because of all of this, I have learned a valuable, valuable lesson that if you have been sexually molested or raped as a kid or even as a teenager by a relative, it is so detrimental to... I thought I wasn't going to cry. It's so detrimental to you and your mental health and your emotional health to go and get the help. Talk to someone. If you can't talk to anybody in your family and you can't talk to the person that did it, to tell them even that you're just remotely angry at them for doing it and why did they mess up your life, because I don't have that chance now. I get to go yell at a stone slab in the ground because my dad's dead. Why? Don't wait. Get the help. Even if you have to seek help on your own and nobody else in your family will help you, just get the help, because I'm sorry, 42 years, and that's my age, 42 years of holding this in and never saying anything to anybody. I mean, my children knew. I never lied to my children about my past in any which way, shape, or form, and especially about that. And it can really mess up your life. It can eventually mess up your children's life, even grandchildren, depending on how your family works for generations and stuff. But the day my dad passed, and it was an awful feeling that I had, I was sad, but I was extremely relieved that he was gone, because I then could get rid of the hate. And my dad has been passed for over 3 years now, and I still have this hate. I thought it would go away when he died, but I just hate him. I mean, I love him. It's so weird. I love him still. I miss him. But I also hate him. And I really still hate her, because I felt that he had some positions in the Mormon church that he shouldn't have had, like being in the bishopric, which deals with a lot of the young women and the primary kids for like outings and stuff. I don't think he should have been around that. Come to find out, he was never on the sexual offenders list, and he lived maybe 2-3 residential streets away from a elementary school. So yeah, I mean, you gotta tell somebody, you gotta protect yourself and your kids, yes, but go get the help you need. Please go get the help you need. Thank you for watching, and I'm sorry that I cried and almost lost it. Well, actually, I did lose it. And I will see you guys for the next stories and the confessions. Bye.